Right, we're going with Vaush's first video. The reason I'm doing this is so I can have Vaush in my thumbnail. I know, shilling. I know Vaush already did a video on this, but again, thumbnail and title. Video the more click, so I do this so I can do some clickbait. Okay? I know, I'm a big shoe.
Hey there, comrades.
Ooh, yeah, that aged poorly.
So, some of you know me as Irish.
I like how he just like how he drawed him. That's respect the lob.
Laddie, probably most of you, actually. But I chose that username when I was 11 years old and had a shaky sense of national identity.
Like right now, yeah. To be fair, I have no reason.
I'm actually American.
Why did you say it like that? Why did you say it like that? Why did you do that?
So from now on, I'll be going as Vaush.
Okay, I'm gonna not comment on every cringy thing you did because one, I'm a cringy 14-year-old on YouTube. I don't have a leg to stand on. I don't even have. I don't do any editing. Okay, I can't critique him for having shit editing. So let's just talk about the political stuff, okay?
Got it? Alright, good. So, I'm an internet boy. And when I'm on Reddit, or YouTube, or in Twitch chat, or my Twitter DMs, or on Grindr, there's a very particular sort of person with whom interaction tends to leave me feeling very frustrated and angry. Because you see, I'm a leftist, and I give every shit about this storm of right-wing populism we're all weathering like a fucking hurricane.
I think this was through Gamergate, so this is not like the red pill thing right now. That was the Gamergate. I think, yeah, that was the Gamergate surge, not the current red pill surge that we are currently witnessing.
Comes with the territory of being a leftist, and being a decent person. It's strange, then, and sort of disquieting, that right-wing populists aren't the ones who leave me feeling that way. Frustrated and angry, I mean. It's not the fascists, the nationalists, the out-and-about racists, the transphobes, the anti-Semites, or any other pasty, degenerate faction of the alt.
To me, it's the libertarians, because libertarianism is not a political ideology. I bond with fascists over hatred of libertarians.
Right. Now, don't get me wrong. These people are terrible. I hate them. But they're not.
I know Rianne, I'm really tempted to say something about like that, but just zoom in or something.
Not the ones who make me want to give up on politics and dedicate my life to breeding geckos. Now that honor belongs to the fucking centrists.
Oh yeah, by the way, centrism back then was much more big thing.
So, before we get to that, leftism. Now, being a leftist means that I, in addition to being very strong, tall, handsome, sexually virile, socially competent, and packed with so much muscle, my pecs are beginning.
I wish you can. I wish I have like a camera so you can just see me cringing.
To expand inwards and collapse my ribcage, am also very smart and have great opinions. Some of these opinions, like the need to abolish capitalism and deconstruct gender roles, are fairly tepid, while some, like my pathologically sexual desire to bully white male gamers, are pretty radical. I'm a radical, I guess. And that's a super arbitrary and contextual classification, mind. I mean, abolitionists and women's suffragists were pretty radical in their time. What constitutes a radical belief can speak as much to society's limitations as it does to the severity of the belief itself. There are some people to whom radical thought, immoderation, zealousness, deviation from the status quo, is itself a threat to discourse, in spite of the incalculably significant and often...
This you can find these people like people who say like they don't talk about politics. Thing is though, everything is politics. Like I respect you if you don't want to talk about politics, but like politics is the only thing that it's somehow taboo to have an opinion on, even though it's one of the most important things. Politics isn't just politicians screaming at each other. It's much bigger. You in your shit job with shit wages walking around, like in the Roosevelt times, you would have politics would have much more impact on people's lives. Like politics isn't, people try to make it so politics is just that small little people just screaming at each other. It's not.
Often valued impact radicals have had on society in the past. These people, centrists, derived from the Byzantinian prefix sint, or to defecate loudly, can be found poisoning discourse and impeding discussion in pretty much every politically minded corner of the internet. They will claim, loftily, that there are problems with both sides, and that the answer can be found in the middle. They
That sounds like Democrats.
denounce violence when it's committed unlawfully, but remain silent when violence is committed in line with the system, no matter the reasons for either. They condemn extremism as a matter of course, without considering its motivations. Their statements of belief, when issued, are often intended only to contrast and subsequently exaggerate a more radical belief. Centrists embody that which Martin Luther King condemned in his letter from Birmingham jail.
White moderates.
Moderates, who are
White moderates.
more devoted to order than to justice, who prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly say, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action. Listen, if you consider yourself a centrist, or a moderate, or a rationalist, or a midpoint man, or an omniliberal, or whatever else, I've got to be a little bit mean to you here. I've got to be a little mean. Because you've let me down so many times. But, I mean, hey, I used to be one of you, and I did get better.
Oh, by the way, this is how I watch Vaush videos. I constantly have them speeded. Sorry, Vaush.
Oh, I get it. We should always be looking for opportunities to grow, because it's always infinitely less likely we're right about absolutely everything than it is we've still got a few things to learn. And if you're a centrist, and you don't want to learn, then maybe dip out here. Because centrists are, by and large, stupid, politically ignorant, ideologically virtuous, and riddled with more prejudices than my inbox will be angry PMs after this video makes me a millionaire and I can stop pretending to care about social issues. They are an intolerable cancer on political discourse, particularly on the internet, and serve to do little more than provide a cover for more extreme reactionary views.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting that people who call themselves a libertarian end up being fascists. Like, is it interesting? Like, in Adam something, a video on libertarianism, he talks about how there's a quote, libertarian to alt-right pipeline. Like Ben Shapiro calls himself a libertarian.
to learn more, please sit down and grease up your hog and join me as we insert ourselves into this
I'm greasing it right
YouTube
now.
video. The Overton window, coined by legal expert Joseph P. Window, refers to the range of ideas tolerated in political discourse. Basically, whatever isn't too outlandish to be discussed and considered by society at large. The exquisite, sensuous feminine angle today?
It was originally to talk about like freedom, so like anarchy, authoritarianism, anarchism. There's no point in me saying that, but just add that.
Yes. A century ago? No. The Overton window is constantly shifting, being pulled left and right, expanded and contracted. It's difficult to imagine, but just 10 years ago, transgender people had basically no presence in media or in political discourse. They were...
He's wrong. Vaush.
ostracized out of recognition. Their legitimacy so outside the bounds of the Overton window, a politician would have never been taken seriously if they tried to take a stand on transgender rights. Now, in 2019, being trans is mandatory, and they're coming for me next.
Cringe.
Centrists, the ideal centrists, at least the platonic centrists, strive to find compromise between what they perceive to be the extremes presented on both sides of the political aisle. This does, of course, make them a slave to the Overton window and however it may shift. After all, if the window shunts rightwards, centrists are now obligated to adjust their beliefs accordingly, lest they occupy a political position which is now considered left-leaning.
Correct.
Okay, actually, wait. Hold on. We can do this with examples. Okay, it's 2014. You're a centrist, and you fall pretty much dead center between the mainstream conservative and liberal platforms of your distant bygone era. Election season approaches, and one of the Liberal Party's frontrunner candidates is a cantankerous old social democrat with ivory hair like Geralt of Rivia and...
Like and subscribe so he can get premium.
and the voice of an angel. He loses the primaries, but his populist...
He's talking about Bernie Sanders, by the way, if you can't guess.
rhetoric resonates. And the rhetoric of the winning candidate is shifted leftwards to capitalize on that popularity. Social democracy, lowered or even free college tuition, single-payer healthcare, increased taxation of the wealthy. It's all a little less taboo to discuss now. To put it simply, the Overton window is expanded leftwards. Now, the Conservative Party also fields a populist in their primaries, and he actually ends up winning. Not just the primary,
You're talking about Trump?
His rhetoric is, let's say, a little more blatant than that of his party contemporaries, and his rise to prominence brings quite a few positions into the range of acceptable public discourse. Positions like banning all Muslim immigration to...
Trump calls for total and complete shutdown on Muslim entry into the United States. What's it? Post-it. This is the bread tube thing.
to the United States, referring to news organizations.
Politics. About 80% of the media are the enemy of the people, Trump says. We can see the Hitler particles.
As enemies of the American people, bombing the civilian families of suspected terrorists.
Don't Trump say, hey, take out the terrorist families.
Splitting families and detaining migrant children.
Destroying military children and into high level ever. This is called the Gishgala, by the way.
Camps near the border, legislating transgender people out of
existence. Transgender could be defined out of existence using Trump's admission. He's doing the bread too.
Failing to condemn and thus tacitly endorsing neo-Nazi rallies, lying constantly, all the time, like always, even when it's easily falsifiable, fueling anti-vaccination fervor, mocking veterans for getting captured as...
Trump claimed vaccine doing. He's not a war hero. Donald Trump mocks John McCain's service.
POWs, building a literal fucking 2000...
Trump seeks $18 billion to extend border war over 10 years.
A wall in the dirt to spite brown people. I mean, do you even remember what a slow news week feels like? We've grown jaded to conservative rhetoric that, if uttered a decade ago, would have been political suicide. The Overton window, the range of acceptable discourse, has...
in comparison, that time, that there was a slow news week. Remember that. Like right now, there's a war in Ukraine. There's a war. It's not even a war. There's war in Ukraine. Then remember then, like before, when the big thing was like fucking Brexit. Now the big thing is that fucking Ukraine's at war. Israel's trying to do trying to do a genocide. Hamas wants to do it, but Hamas can't do anything. Israel's the only person who can do anything. If you're truly anti-Hamas, you should be a pro-Palestinian. Because the only way for Hamas to die is either genocide Palestinian, which, let's be, I don't want to be any kind. How about we just be a bit cold? Genocide is a bit inefficient. If we just gave them the land, then there's no point for them joining Hamas. If as soon as the diplomatic solution is able, then Hamas... You tell I'm British, by the way.
Has been stretched way to the right. And see, now the centrist is in a tricky position. If they want to play the both sides card and continue advocating for a position equidistant to that of both parties, their rhetoric needs to grow more conservative. 9 years ago, a moderate was someone who encouraged the Democratic Party to water down the Affordable Care Act so it could be made palatable to a Republican Senate. Nowadays, a moderate is someone who denounces Antifa and neo-Nazi violence with equal fervor, equivocating the two and tacitly downplaying the latter.
I just realised that. Look. Rate drawing hallmarks, by the way. What's that? What's that?
As the window shifts, the
cock called the state words the state. That sounds like some anarchist book.
Arguments have to change. Look at a centrist. Look them in their beady reptilian eyes. If things get bad here, and I mean really bad, what position will they have to take next? I should throw a disclaimer in here. Now, politics is really complicated, and political positions can't really be charted on a graph, certainly not on a line graph. The Overton window isn't just a range along an x-axis. It's a vague and subjective descriptor meant to contextualize political discourse within a set of social expectations. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a useful term, it just means it's complicated. You want to get really complicated? Let's talk about core values, because centrist sure is fucked out. Underlying all belief, all policy, all political preference, everything, there are values. A chain of them, actually, from least to most fundamental. I'll give you an example.
Again, subscribe and press the bell icon if you want me to get premium.
There are many homeless people in the smoldering charcoal pit of a state my exquisitely muscular body currently inhabits, and I want something done about it. That's my policy position. I want something done about the homeless people in my state. Something nice, obviously. Like, let's say, vocational programs, meant to clean them up a smidge and give them some job and social skills. So, why do I want that? Well, the goal of that policy would be an increase in employability and social integration, which will, hopefully, help them find jobs and give them the money they need to find housing. And with that, wham! No longer homeless. As to why I'd want them to no longer be homeless? Well, financial stability and sleeping in a warm bed are probably strong indicators of happiness. And I'd like the presently homeless population of California to be, happy. And if you ask me why I want the presently homeless population of California to be happy, you'd reach one of my most fundamental
He's in
values, an
Canada right
axiomatic
now.
value, a mighty truth.
He's talking about axioms. Every Vaush video, yeah, every Vaush video, only a true v.gg gonna send us. I don't know, v.gg. That's
Which all my other beliefs and values grow outward like branches and sticks and leaves
axioms,
and shit.
dude.
It's the root of my thought process, the presupposition from which all my other values derive. It is, in brief, I want as many people as possible to enjoy their lives to the greatest possible extent. Every position I advocate for, every policy endorsed, they're all in service of that value. Centrists are fundamentally incapable of acknowledging the influence values have on policy because they hold no values themselves, save an attachment to a moderation at the cost of all sense. They advocate for positions equidistant from both sides of the political aisle, even if those sides are motivated by wildly different interests and pulling the country in mutually exclusive directions. Here's an example of a compromise which serves the interests of our nation. Republicans want to allocate $60 million to a national park revitalization initiative, and Democrats want to allocate $100 million. So, who gets what they want? Tensions mount until a centrist enters the arena, calculator in hand and rainbow propeller beanie on head. He sweats profusely, anxiously scratching the itchy skid mark that runs from the seat of his pants down to the left ankle. What? He sputters breathily. If we allocated $80 million? The compromise is made, parties thrown, alcohol imbibed. It's a success for everyone because you see, both parties wanted to achieve the same goal.
Okay, what he's talking about right now is that that if both people agree on something, then that compromise is okay. But when I mean agree, they have the same fundamental ideas. So, for example, if someone wants to feed poor people, they both parties want to feed poor people. They want it slightly different ways. Then centralism compromise is okay. But if someone wants to have an abortion, and someone who doesn't, those are two different values. You can't. What does every 1/3 abortion take place?
Revitalization of our national parks, and they wanted to achieve it in the same way by funding a revitalization initiative.
talking what I said.
Compromise can work there.
Vaush
Now,
is
what do you do
copying
if
me.
Republicans introduce legislation barring transgender women from using their preferred restrooms? Or if Republicans move to repeal DACA? Or, hey, if Republicans are still really fucking mad about Roe versus Wade, so they're doing everything in their power to limit women's access to an abortion in a manner which absolutely violates the spirit of the Supreme Court ruling, but just barely meets its letter. You see, compromise doesn't work in those instances. It can't work because the America Republicans are trying to build is mutually exclusive to the America Democrats are trying to build. Any compromise in any of these instances is an unequivocal loss for Democrats and the minorities they're trying to defend, and an unequivocal gain for Republicans who hate minorities. Whether you agree or disagree with the policies being laid out here, you have to recognize that there's absolutely no room for compromise. Do we ban transgender women from